Hello, and welcome to today's lesson. Today, we're going to be taking a look at another grammar error that becomes somewhat prominent on the SAT, but may be glossed over completely in everyday speech: ambiguous or unclear pronouns. So, as you read through SAT writing and language passages, you have to be on the lookout for pronouns that don't have clear references, and thus may need a reference filled in, or may need a recoordinated sentence. That's exactly what ambiguous or unclear pronouns are. So, first of all, take a look at the following few sentences and see if you notice anything that's actually incorrect about them. Controversy over the manuscript seemed imminent, seems like a pretty straightforward thought. The reasoning soon became clear. They agreed the future generations, deeper understanding. So if you see all of these concepts, it seems like a sensible expression, a sensible discussion of manuscripts and a debate surrounding them. The problem is not the meaning. The problem is that there actually is a pronoun in here that does not have a meaningful reference of any sort, so you have to look for grammar. And so if you didn't notice anything on a first or even second read here that seems problematic, then there's a chance that you might not be familiar with ambiguous or unclear pronouns as the SAT tests them. So how does all this work? An ambiguous pronoun is normally unclear in terms of the noun that it refers back to. And the thing here is that, yes, you may be able to make some guesses as to what the noun is. Like let's say you have a sentence in which you have a lot of descriptions of some animals. And you keep getting expressions like they took care of the animals, they studied the animals. Well, you may get the sense that it's scientists of some kind, animal trainers of some kind, but if the noun is not there, can't really work with it. So you may guess a noun for ambiguous pronoun, but you just won't see it. Now, special cases, though. There are a very select few elements on the SAT that don't require clarification for noun references because you can't really in standard English usage. The big one would be instances of it is that set up a situation. It is snowing, it is apparent that, it is difficult to. And these are just there to give you the idea, okay, here's what's happening. But every other time you see something like he, she, it, they, those are the ones, usually the third person pronouns, that you need a clear reference for. And so let's take a second look at that sentence from earlier. Well, how would you correct this? So first of all, if you're going to be looking for ambiguous pronouns, get pronouns and link them back to the nouns very specifically. Now, the one big pronoun we have in this pair of sentences is the word they. And so, okay, what nouns could we link it to? We know that they would be agreeing to something about future generations. So we can probably guess that we're talking about some kind of group of people, experts, specialists, what have you. Okay, but do we have a noun like that present? Okay, we have the word manuscripts as a plural that would line up with they. Problem is that you wouldn't have manuscripts agreeing on anything, that you need people. Same thing with the word documents. That would not make sense. You could maybe go with the word generations, but then generations in the present agreeing with something about generations in the future, or the generations agreeing with themselves, doesn't seem like a good fit for what we were predicting. So you can keep going. You can maybe try out the word reasoning, which will fall apart, or the word controversy. But the problem there is even if you could shift that they to an it reference, you wouldn't say a controversy agreed. You wouldn't say reasoning agreed. You need people. So you don't have the right noun present anywhere else. What you'd want to do then is fill in the right noun. So if it's not already there, then get a noun that actually is appropriate based on meaning and logic. And if you're worried about adding words, this is not the time to really be too concerned about that. You may need to add words on the SAT in order to fix grammar problems. It's style and redundancy problems where you're needlessly repeating concepts without fixing the grammar. That's the real problem. So you could take the they reference and add a word. That will make it a lot clearer, a lot more sensible, this reference. And so the correct version, if you go ahead and eliminate the ambiguous pronoun, we know that we need some group agreeing about specialized documents. Experts would be effective. And so just remember that if you're going to make any assumptions about what pronoun and what noun line up, you need to be able to find an exact noun. You almost need to be able to point to here's the noun, here's the pronoun with your pencil, and figure out, okay, these are the two in the passage. If you can't do that, fill in an appropriate noun. And now some practice questions. So, what we have here are 3 sentences, just like you'll encounter in many of our books from PrepVantage. They are specialized to have you work on this specialized error type. And can you identify the error? In each of the following sentences, you'll have exactly one problem involving ambiguous pronouns. So go through these and figure out what the pronoun should refer to. Some of these may have multiple pronouns, by the way. Some of those may be ambiguous, some may not be. So in each sentence, you'll have one ambiguous pronoun and then some others that you can actually take and test out the way we have and be like, ah yes, this is the reference for that pronoun. So here are your 3 sentences. Take a couple minutes with these. And remember, you may need to fill in a new noun if you don't already have an appropriate noun somewhere else in the sentence. Take about another half a minute with these, and then we'll talk. Okay, let's see how you did. So here are a few of the possible answers that you could have come up with. And you should note that depending on what's going to happen in the passage, you may have different answers that fit. So, in the first one, we had this sentence about a dispute among different kinds of artists, and only one group of the artists emerged victorious, but we didn't know which group it was. We just got a very vague them kind of reference. So, if the passage is telling you that the traditionalists were the victorious ones, that is what you'd fill in there. Yeah, it does give you extra letters in the sentence, but you don't worry about that. Or the passage might have given you a slightly different piece of content. What if the Impressionists or the Post-Impressionists were the victorious ones? Well, then you would have filled in one of those two groups. Again, passage content will matter for these. We have this next sentence about Dr. Sen and Dr. McDonald. And the problem is that first we did have a possessive that was actually clear, their approval. Well, whose approval? The approval of the attendees. So if you'd gone with that, that's not the pronoun you need to fill in. It was the him reference. So we didn't know which of the two specialists it was here. Imagine the passage had told you that the right specialist, the one who got approval, was Dr. Sen. Could have been Dr. McDonald, though. Again, you would need to read around to figure out who is actually the correct person. Final one is another case in which we have a pronoun that's actually clear, but many of them. Well, who would admit something that prospering financially? Well, business students. So that is actually a pronoun reference that is not ambiguous. But then take a look at the end of the sentence. Originally, we had this it phrasing that was totally unclear. And here's the thing, the it could have referred to high earning power, could have referred to prospering financially. But those are the same thing, usually. And you wouldn't say that something is less important than itself. You wouldn't say that earning power less important than prospering, because those are the same thing. So what you would need instead is something to contrast those with, and work-life balance would make sense here. Although you could have gone with another positive quality as determined by the full passage. So I think you've caught on now that you have to look for these ambiguous pronouns, you have to trace them back to references, but you need to also keep the content of the passage in mind, because everything here will be a passage-based question on the real SAT. So if you need more practice, whether with sentences like this or full passages, check out our SAT books. And there are a couple we have available on Grammar right now. That first you have the guide to SAT Grammar Strategy, which will give you hundreds of practice questions, including several that test your ability to work with ambiguous pronouns, both in specialized senses like we've seen here and in full passages. Or if you feel confident going into full passages a little more quickly, there is also the SAT writing book of new grammar tests, 8 full tests, a lot of questions like this one. So if you want to contact us, if you are interested in learning more about the different grammar strategies or setting up a lesson, just visit PrepVantage Tutoring online. So until then, have a great day, and we'll look forward to teaching you much more about the SAT grammar as this series in the SAT Writing and Language section moves forward. Have a great day.